guys, welcome back to my channel. If you are new, hello and welcome. My name is Katie and this is my monthly reading wrap-up video. It is a brand new series to my channel this year, and yeah, so this is going to be my reading wrap-up for February 2023. So if you would like to know what I've been reading this month, then make sure you keep on watching. So I'm kicking off February with a book on my Kindle which I DNF'd. I think I've got rid of it now on my Kindle because obviously space and things. Let me have a look. Yeah, I've got rid of them, the ones that I DNF'd off my Kindle. But I'll try and put the images of the covers here just so you know what to look for if you do want to read it. It might be up your street more than mine. So it's a book called City of Brass by S.A. Chakraborty. I'm so sorry if I butchered that. And I DNF'd it. I think I got to nearly 100 pages, I think. It's kind of I'm not sure if it's a retelling of a particular myth or legend. It's kind of based in like the Egyptian era, I think. I bet he's making funny noises already. And I just found it too slow. It's quite a big, chunky book. I have seen people have it in physical form, and it was quite big. I found it a bit slow. I found there was like quite a lot of world building. And as much as I can enjoy that through other books that I've read, for example, like Akatar, this was just too much to contend with. It was just a bit slow, and I didn't really like the main character. I did like the idea of the book. It sounds really intriguing, but I got a bit lost in the plot as well. There is multiple points of view in this, and I got a bit like lost and confused, so I just stopped and DNF'd because there was no point in me trying to push through it when I was getting a bit confused with things in the book. So sadly, kicking off with a DNF. But one thing that I did fully read this month was a book called Guild, and it is part of a series. I think it's 4 books, and it's based on the story of King Midas. And yeah, I was very surprised with this because I didn't know what to expect. Obviously, it's fantasy based, and I really did love it. I've given it 4.5 stars. Loved the whole vibe of the book. It's a very good, like, kind of fantasy-esque book. There's fae, there's pirates. You got the point of view of Oren, I think her name is, who is one of the main characters in the book. There is a couple of topics in here that I would advise checking the trigger warnings, because there was domestic violence in the book, and kind of like harem relationships. So the King Midas would be in like many sexual relationships with different people at the same time. Some people might find that a bit difficult to read, and I did find some of that a little bit difficult to read, but not to the point where I found it triggering and it was upsetting me. So yeah, that's only the reason why I gave it 4.5 stars, because I did find little bits hard to read, but not to the point where it upset me. So I am looking forward to continuing this series. I have got book 2, so hopefully I'll read that this year. So yeah, I would highly recommend it if you do like kind of fantasy. I will just quickly read a bit of a blurb just in case you haven't checked out what it is about. This is the story of King Midas, or that's what we're always told. The Golden King with his palace of riches, and me, the girl he turned gold. Upon the snowy mountains in the sixth kingdom of Aurea, I'm locked away in Highbell Castle, away from the dangers of the world below. No one can get in apart from him. King Midas rescued me from the streets. He gave me food, shelter, and his heart. I promised to love him forever. But when war comes to kingdom, a deal is struck, and I am at the heart of the bargain. Everything I know starts to change. My love for Midas challenged, my trust broken. Suddenly I am sent to travel between kingdoms, to a future I no longer understand, and my spirit becomes truly tested. I'm always told this is his tale, but perhaps this is no longer the case. It is mine. This is the story of Oren. So if that doesn't intrigue you, then I don't know what will. So as I said, I've got the second one, so hopefully I will read that this year, because I do want to carry on the series, and I'm very intrigued. So as I said, I gave that 4.5 stars because I enjoyed it as a whole. I just found a couple of topics a little bit triggering, but not, as I said, not to the point where it upset me. So, next book is this one called The Huntress Sea. I think I picked this up from a charity shop. And unfortunately, I DNF'd this as well. I don't like DNFing books, but if I'm not enjoying it, and I don't know what's going on with my belly, so if you can hear that. But if I'm not enjoying a book and I'm just not vibing with the whole writing or anything in the book, then I'm not going to try and push through it. Only if I really, really want to know what happens in the story, I will try and push through it, but I might not enjoy it as much, hence it might lower the rating. So I did DNF this. I am going to put it in my pile to go to a charity shop or something like that. I felt the writing style was aimed at younger people. I think I did pick it up and it was in like the little teenage section. So it's by Sarah Driver, so I don't know if she's done any other books, but yeah, I felt the writing style was a bit like for younger aged people. What else have I got in my notes? Also, something that did annoy me with the writing is like they were trying to sound like the character. For example, there is pirates in the story, and the writing was trying to sound like how you talk like a pirate, and I just couldn't get on with reading like that. I just couldn't do it. So unfortunately, I DNF'd. I did think it sounded really good, but I don't know, maybe it's just not for me. Maybe I've read more other books which are a bit more my age, and this just felt a bit too young for me. So sadly, that is a DNF for this month. Next, we have, I think it actually looks like I haven't read much, but I have read a few on like my Kindle and things this month. So the next physical book that I read is The Girl on the Train by Paula Hawkins. If you saw last month's wrap up, you will know I absolutely loved A Slow Fire Burning, which is also by Paula Hawkins. I've been told she has got another book, which I may have a look for at some point. So, yeah, this was quite dark in places. Please, I would advise checking trigger warnings if you do want to read it. It had some good twists and turns in it, but I did find this a bit hard to read, if I'm a bit honest. Just some of the dark topics that are featured in the story. So, as I said, I would advise checking trigger warnings in case. I personally thought it had a bit of a slower pace to A Slow Fire Burning. So it took me a few chapters to get to the multiple points of view in the book. So sometimes that does take me a little while to get used to. But once I got used to that, it was fine. But yeah. So I would advise checking trigger warnings just in case. I gave it 3.5 stars. So not as good as Slow Fire Burning, I don't think, in my opinion. but it was still good for Paula Hawkins. I like her writing style, but I found this quite dark. So sometimes I'm okay with dark topics, but yeah, sometimes I'm not. But I did finish it in three or 4 days, so it was really good. It kept me intrigued, and it kept me wanting to know what happened. So yeah, I picked this one up in a charity shop, and I haven't seen this version on TikTok or anything. It's got sprayed edges. I think this is one of the only books that I have that's got sprayed edges. So yeah, enjoyed it, but I found some of the topics throughout the story a bit hard to read. So that is that one. The next book I read on my Kindle is called, I'm going to pronounce it Babel. I think some people pronounce it Babel. It's not my typical read. It is very, very long. I'll put the cover up here. It's quite a popular book on TikTok and things. It is very long. It took me ages to get through this. It's kind of historical, dark academia genre, I would say. Quite intense, quite dark. I would check trigger warnings because there's quite a few in this book, I would say. Some domestic violence, some racial terms, which when I read it, I was like, oh my god, why are we doing this? But I think it's a book that's meant to shock you in how like Chinese people and different people of different countries are treated back in, I think it's 1800s, I think, or the 18th and 19th century. So there were some racial terms and and sexist terms as well used in this book, and it shocked me reading them. Like, you couldn't say that now. So yeah, I think that was the kind of one of the main reasons people read it, to come to terms with how people were treated in those days. And I understood the whole message of the book that it was putting across. It just wasn't my cup of tea. It's not my kind of genre, I don't think. So I did only give it 3 stars because I found it a bit long. And I think just historical dark academia is not my kind of vibe. I wanted to read it because, again, it had a hot. I know I shouldn't follow Be as Sheep, but I followed it as it had a lot of hype, and I was intrigued to know why. And the book blurb and synopsis did have me intrigued. I just didn't realise how big it was. So it did take me a little while to read, and I read it on my Kindle. So that was a godsend, because if I had the actual book, I would have been like a massive weight. So yeah, I read Babel, and it's by R.F. Kuang. Again, sorry if I've pronounced that wrong, but yeah, that wasn't my vibe. So on to the next one. This was on Audible, and it's a book called The Bone Witch by Rin Chubeko. Again, witchy, dark fantasy genre. You kind of get the vibe of my favourite kind of genre. I'm still getting used to listening to audiobooks, so I'm still getting used to, if, for example, this book had 2 narrators, so getting used to that kind of thing. So my thoughts on this: it was different in a good way, like a different type of witch story. Like, the main witch, who is a bone witch called Tia, she starts off at the beginning not knowing that she's a bone witch, and then throughout the story you follow her journey of finding out she's a bone witch, which is a dark witch, like kind of dark magic. And yeah, it's a different type of magic system as well, which I haven't really read much of. So it's kind of dark magic, raising from the dead, using rune magic and elemental magic, so different elements. And yeah, I really enjoyed that. It was something different for me to read. I loved the journey of the story as well, like following Tia's journey, like finding out she's a Bone Witch and watching her grow and learn about being a Bone Witch. I overall enjoyed the book as a whole. And just one thing I just would say is, for me personally, I just had to take a couple of chapters to get used to the different, like the two narrators and things. But that's just a personal thing for me, because I haven't really done audiobooks properly before. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. And you'll see that I listened to the second book this month as well. So I did 2 audiobooks this month, which is quite big for me. So I gave The Bone Witch 4 stars. Yeah, just the general enjoyed it. And it was just something nice, well, not nice, something good to listen to that was different. So I gave it 4 stars. And yeah, I'm going to you'll see obviously I carried on to read the second book this month, and I'm hoping to listen to the third book, which is, because it's part of a trilogy, hoping to listen to the third book in March. So this next book I read is quite a popular one by Taylor Jenkins Reid, and it's The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. This, again, I think I bought because it's quite hyped. It's quite a hyped book. So I finished this in 3 days. This is absolutely amazing. It's not my usual type of book to read, but I thought it was amazing. The only thing that I would say that I should have put it to 4.5 stars really, but I gave it 5 stars because how amazing the story was. The only thing that I would say is the cover image with you read the book, and this is her iconic dress that she wears in the book. I found this cover a bit misleading because I thought it was about a white woman actress. It's not. It's about a black woman actress. So I thought they might have used like more of a black woman on the cover, but it's not. It's like a kind of Marilyn Monroe-esque image, I would say. So I went into it thinking it's about like a really old, like white woman, but it's not. It's about a black woman who's an actress. So I think that was the only thing. Well, it's not really a thing, is it? It's just the image on the cover. I think it could have been a bit better. But other than that, I loved the journey of the book. I loved the journey you went through the book of Evelyn's life. Also finding out why Monique, who is the journalist who is writing Evelyn's biography, you find out why she chose her in particular to write the biography. And yeah, there was a couple of bits where it pulled at the heartstrings, and yeah, it was just a general really good book. It kept me intrigued. It kept me wanting to know more about Evelyn's story. Again, I would check trigger warnings because there is topics of, again, domestic violence and alcohol and drug abuse. So I would check that just in case it does trigger you. But overall, this is a really good book. I am wanting to read more from Taylor Jenkins Reid because she is quite a popular author on BookTok. So I'm hoping to, I've got 2 books reserved of hers from the library, but they're like, there's such a long waiting list for them, so I won't be reading them for a little while. But I would highly, highly recommend this book if you haven't read it yet. I'm a bit late to the party with this one, but I really, really did enjoy it. I did give it 5 stars for the story on its own, but if I was giving it as a whole, I might have dropped it down to 4.5 because the cover, I think, could have been done better with a bit of a more visual representation of a black woman on the cover. But other than that, great book, great story, loved it. My next book that I read was from my library. So unfortunately that's gone back, but I will try and put the image of the book here. And it was Kingdom of the Wicked, and that is part of a trilogy. So I hope to read the rest of the trilogy at some point this year. It's by Kerry Manin. I can't pronounce it, I'm so sorry. But you'll see the author's name on the book cover. I can't pronounce it, I'm really, really sorry. Maniscalco? I think that's how you say it. I'm really sorry, but you'll see the name of the cover on the cover. And I gave this 3.5 stars. So it was overall a good read. I liked the whole. There's a bit of an Italian vibe with this book. Like the main characters' family, they own an Italian restaurant. They're Italian, and yeah, I liked that vibe because it reminded me of what is it? I don't know. It just reminded me of something, and I really did enjoy that vibe because you don't see it very often when fantasy books have like a certain heritage or country vibe. So I did enjoy the dark vibes of this book. The book is based on demons. So I haven't really read too many fantasy books which have got demons in. I thought it was a good plot. It's based on a pair of twins who are witches, but they're not allowed to like show they're witches. And unfortunately one of them gets murdered, and the other twin basically goes on a journey to try and find out why. And yeah, it was overall a good plot. I think I will continue with the series. I think there's 3 books in the series, so just 2 more to go through. And yeah, you start off at the beginning. This twin who is left over from who doesn't get murdered, she's kind of the good girl, the kind of nicey, does what her family asks and things like that. But you get to see her journey, and she kind of goes down the good girl gone bad vibe. So I can't wait to see how that progresses, because the first book did end on a cliffhanger. So that was always a good reason to carry on with the series. So yeah, it's just overall a general good read, a good fantasy read. I'd say it's not too it wasn't heavy on any world building or anything like that. And I liked the different side of it, as in it had demons in it rather than not just focusing on witches. Obviously it has witches, but it had the demon side. So yeah, 3.5 stars. I think that's quite a good rating. So after that, I listened to this as well as obviously reading other books. I went on to the second book of the Bone Witch trilogy, which is called The Heart Forger, again by Rin Shubeko. So yeah, again, it just followed straight on from the first book, which I really enjoy. That's one thing I don't like if a series doesn't carry straight on from the first book. It does annoy me a bit. But yeah, this one followed the story straight on to the next book, which I really enjoy. So you can just get straight back into the plot and the story, and just carry on from where you left off. And this one had quite a bit of a build-up, building a journey kind of vibe, and then there's a big thing that happens towards the end of the book, which it's building up to, which I did enjoy. There's you got to see some different character representations in this book. There is some LGBTQ relationships you see in this book, which are revealed. And yeah, that was nice to see. It's always nice to see that being represented in books. I also enjoyed following Tia, which is the main character who is the Bone Witch, following her growth and her journey throughout this book as well, because she goes down a bit of more of a darker route in this book. and again it's ended on a cliffhanger. So I will be listening to the third book because I need to know how it concludes, and I can't wait to see how it does, because yeah, I finished it this morning and it was just like, I need to know what happens. So yeah, overall I gave this, I should have given it, not coloured it in correctly, but I have given this I'm going to give this 4 stars. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. There was a couple of quotes that characters said which actually made me laugh, so that is always a good thing when you can have comedic value still within a fantasy book, which I really enjoyed. So yeah, that is The Heart Forger. Next, I read the trilogy of Caraval on my Kindle. You could get, I don't know if it's still on offer, but you could get the trilogy of Caraval, which is by Stephanie Garber, for 99p, which is three books for 99p, which I thought was really good. And I managed to read the whole trilogy this month, which is crazy. So I'll quickly go through each book. So obviously the first one is called Caraval, and I gave this 3.5 stars. I liked it as a whole. I did find this one a bit chaotic, it would flip to different plots in the story so fast. You'd really have to make sure you're concentrating and focused to know what's going on. So I found it a little bit hard to keep up, knowing which plot we're at. Yeah, so I found it, until I knew what was going on with the story, I found it a bit hard to keep up with the different plots that were going on. Yeah, so it's about 2 sisters who want to go to Caraval because it's a big magical kind of circus-esque show and game. It turns into a game. And they want to go to this so bad, and it's really hard to get to, and you have to be invited to go to Caraval and stuff like that. So you follow 2 sisters called Scarlett and Donatella, and they refer to Donatella as Tella for short. And yeah, it's kind of just that they eventually get invited to Caraval on their journey, and they get to play the game and things like that. So it's kind of their journey together to Caraval and what happens there. So that's that, because I don't want to give away too much because it might spoil things. So again, it did have some dark topics. I've read a few books this month which have had dark topics. So again, I would check trigger warnings just in case. There's some violence, domestic abuse, arranged marriage in this book as well. One of the sisters is arranged to be married to a certain man, and the father of the sisters is quite violent and abusive. So yeah, but you find out why and things like that throughout the book. So obviously I carried on with the series because I wanted to know what happened, because it ended on a cliffhanger. So the second book is called Legendary, and this was my favourite book out of the 3. So yeah, this one was so much better in my opinion. Normally people find the first book of a series is the best, but I found this one was so much better than the first. This one focused on Tella's point of view and Tella's story. So I felt this one had much more atmosphere. There was forbidden lovers, which is I really like that trope. And there was just one main plot, so I found it much easier to read and to follow. Good twists and turns, and yeah, this one was just read so much better. I have done some reviews on my TikTok if you do have that, so go and check it out. I have done a big review of Caraval as a whole, and I was excited to read how the last one was going to go. So I did give this one 5 stars because I really, really did enjoy it much more. And then the last one in the Caraval trilogy is called not Caraval. It's because I've put in my notes Caraval book 3. It's called Finale. And yeah, again, I thought this one was very good and it tied everything together, so it ended nicely. Again, it had a bit of a faster pace, multiple plots to follow, and it was the two sisters' points of view, so you got both of their points of view in this book. And I felt essentially it had 2 plots in the book, so you would follow Scarlett's story, which is one plot, and then Donatella's point of view, which is another plot, and then eventually the plot comes together. But yeah, that was just something to get used to. I enjoyed seeing Scarlett grow stronger in this one because at the beginning she's again kind of the whole nicey, doesn't want to do anything bad, doesn't want to like upset anyone or that kind of person, and Tella is the lively, reckless, does whatever she wants kind of girl. So in the 3rd book, Scarlett becomes more of a stronger woman because of what she's going through, and Tella becomes a bit softer throughout the journey and other things that happen, I want to say, but I don't want to spoil things. So I would advise reading it if you do like fantasy books. I wouldn't say it's a heavy fantasy book, so if you're someone that wants to get into the fantasy genre, I would say give this trilogy a go because it would be a good one to start off with in the fantasy genre. So overall I would say it's a really good trilogy, and I gave the 3rd book 3.5 stars. So not as good as the 2nd. I'd say both the 1st and the 3rd are the same kind of rating. So that's that, and that is all the books I read in February. In total, I read 10 books this month. My favourite book of the month was The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. Such a good story. I'd really recommend reading it. Kind of pulls at the heartstrings a bit as well. And my least favourite was Babel because it's not my kind of cup of tea. So overall I'd say it's quite a good month. And obviously, if you haven't seen, I am doing a readathon challenge for March. So you'll see all the books that I read then. I have put my TBR in the Unspeakathon reading challenge video. So if you want to know what books I'm going to be reading this month, check out that video. It's only a few videos past this one. And I may do maybe weekly reading vlogs just to document how I'm getting on with the reading challenge. So lots of physical books this month coming. So that's going to be February's reading wrap up, and I hope you enjoyed. If you've got any book recommendations, let me know in the comments. And I hope you have enjoyed this video. If you did, please don't forget to leave a big thumbs up. And if you're brand new to my channel, hello and welcome. Please hit that subscribe button as I'm trying my hardest to get to 1,000 subscribers this year. And I would love for you to stick around for the journey and just be part of my little community. So I will speak to you next month for another reading wrap up. Take care. Bye.